Test 13, rookie. Okay, another flight. This time using a craft I haven't flown before, which is a center stack with two side boosters. Normally I've flown either just the center rocket like an Apollo, or with four boosters. On my moon rocket, transport rocket, it had 4 boosters and 4 solids on it. So first time I've flown one with just 2. This is a different craft to fly because the roll becomes really apparent. The rocket will normally roll when it pitches over to go to its heading, and I never paid much attention to it before other than it looked cool, because I've flown the, like I said, either Apollo type rocket or with 4 boosters, so whichever way it rolled, it didn't really matter to me because the position and the heading were still good and it still looked good. I mean, I couldn't tell the difference between, you know, up or down, or which booster is on which side when they're symmetrical, but you sure can tell the difference when you just have 2 side boosters. And something I found out in this game, a lot of people probably already knew this, but the game for some reason orientates the your craft to a north and south orientation rather than an east and west. So that means it's going to roll every time. It's going to roll, since you're going east, it's going to roll to head that way. And that's fine if you're using all those other craft I mentioned, but it's not so fine for this, because when it rolls 90 degrees, it just won't be right. Now the rocket's going to be facing this way, side to side, instead of this way. You could turn the whole craft around on the VAB 90 degrees, but then it's going to set on the pad this way. So it's going to take off and then it's going to roll and it's going to end up being like this. I didn't want that. I wanted visually to launch like this, you know, facing the VAB, facing the ocean, and I wanted to pitch over and not roll. And until I did some research and read on some forums that that's the way the game orientates, I kept struggling with that and trying to adjust MechJeb to try to get it to roll and come back to a heading like this, or orientation like this. So what I found out you do is you don't rotate the whole craft in the VAB, you just rotate the root part. So whatever your root part happens to be, select it and hit your Q key 1 time. Each time you hit the Q key, Q and E are roll. Q is going to roll it clockwise 90 degrees. So every time you click on the Q key, it's going to spin 90 degrees. So you just want to click on it once to orientate it 90 degrees east. Once I did that, that solved all my problems that I kept trying to figure out how the hell to get the roll right. See, now it's not going to roll. It's just going to go straight up. It's going to pitch and it's going to head out to sea to my inclination. So that really helped with this particular craft. You know, as I said, when I fly all my other craft, single 4 boosters, as long as it's symmetrical, it doesn't matter. Or at least it doesn't matter visually. So this is the way the Falcon Heavy is with 2 side boosters. This doesn't in any way resemble the Falcon 9. The proportions are all wrong. I don't have the grid fins and the landing legs on it. So this is a neutered Falcon 9's little brother, because the Falcon 9 was considerably bigger. To make it more proportional, picture this segment right here, adding another segment to this, and then putting this nose back on it, doing the same with the center, and then taking this guy off from here up and put him on top. So the side boosters will end up being about this tall, and this center stack will be about this tall. That's going to simulate more of a Falcon 9, and of course the side boosters, I mean the landing legs and the grid fins, that's totally something separate. I have to figure out how you're going to do that, because you're going to have to spread the boosters out a little bit to be able to get those landing legs on all the way around on all of them. And I wasn't particularly interested in that because I've had a couple of SpaceX mods, and I've actually attempted to do it. I've attempted to use the stock parts, or the SpaceX parts, try to fly it, and try to return one of those boosters back home and land it. And all I can say is, forget about it. For me, I'm not even close to having that kind of a skill set. All I've ended up being is frustrating, pull my hair out, embarrassed, and showed me just how much more skill I have to attain in this game to even attempt to do something like that. I watch videos of people who do that, and even after watching the videos, I scratch my head because I don't have the faintest idea how they're pulling it off. So I just decided to launch something like this to go to the moon, because I made it moon capable, and just fly it for the enjoyment of going to the moon and having it look like this, because that looks kind of cool, and not worry about trying to land these two guys. When they release, they're on their own. This is a disposable mission. Don't think it's coming back. Is my command module. So I have a service module, command module, and a lunar lander inside the fairing. And let's do this. See how it turns out. We're going to go with a 200-kilometer orbit. And I've chosen this to be what is best, that works out the best for me on how I like to fly and how I like the separations to be. A 100-kilometer orbit was actually less enjoyable for me because I never could get the stage separation right. I wanted it to be equal. I wanted to have time that this whole thing flew, time when the center stack went, and then time when the third stage, the trip of the journey itself into orbit. And to get that, I ended up settling on a 200-kilometer orbit, which was much more enjoyable for me. So I'm going to be using MechJeb as my flight computer, as I always do. And let's go ahead and get this thing going. I used the Falcon 9 engines on the mod, and to tell the truth, they didn't sound as good as these. They actually need to do some work. They have almost too much power. Even with trying to build this way up here like a Falcon Heavy, it had too much power. I didn't know what to do with it. To get my balance right, get the things to fly. Plus, it just wasn't as enjoyable. I like the sound of these guys. I ended up choosing, let's see what this is. The KW Rocketry Titan T1. It's about the strongest motor I could find for a single stage main that would push this much weight. And I worked on this quite a bit, trying to get the right amount of fuel in these guys, to get the right burn, to get the right altitudes at the stage separation. It took me many attempts not to get it to orbit, because they all got me there. I just didn't like the way they got me there. Either the first stage burned too long, and the second stage would take me to orbit, and this guy wouldn't even light yet because he was in orbit already. So I wanted to spread it out, because to me it's all about the trip. So I just do stuff to fly it how I want to fly it. Okay, we're getting, see, we still got enough fuel. See, I've had them before where I cut them off already about this height and let the second stage. This one I took up a little bit higher because I kicked my orbit up a little bit higher. The engines sound good, I like them. And we're gonna get to the point, see what our separation looks like. Let's look at it from this side. You're gone, bye-bye. I'm gonna try to land you guys. Don't have the skill for that. This one's on his way. And this one, I managed to have a little bit less heat up here than what I usually do. Man, there's a lot of my flights where this thing is just glowing, you know, totally hot, shedding off heat as I'm slamming in the atmosphere. This one made it up a little better. I got a little bit going on, but not as much as a lot of my other crafts get. So I'm pretty actually happy with this, to tell the truth. I'm not going to do any more adjustments to this. I'm just going to fly it the way it is because it just came out good. So it's going to take me up a little bit higher before, you know, in the third stage. Technically second stage, if you're not counting the boosters, is going to have some work to do also, which is what I wanted. See, before I was going into a 100-kilometer orbit, and I was already cutting off about right here. It was cutting off to go into the coast phase already, and then it would just coast till it got to 70,000 kilometers or so, and hadn't even used this yet. So I'd have to jettison this and then use this for my my orbit burn. But I wanted to have them both going just to have fun during the journey. So this is what I come up with. Don't pay no mind to the whooshing. It's me vaping during my trip, as I always do. There we go, second stage. There we go. I know the Kirby's don't like me vaping all that much. They get a little irritated with me blowing clouds in the command and service module. But hey. They're just going to have to deal with it. We're at this height, I can jettison the fairing, so I'll go ahead and get rid of that guy. See, I would have been in coast phase already, and I wanted to have as much rocket. These tanks are humongous. I mean, you can see I only have them half full, and they're still able to do this final journey to orbit, to do the orbit burn, and then to do the translunar burn, translunar insertion, and still have fuel left over. So I could have taken some more fuel out of those guys if I wanted to. And my solar panels. kind of a different looking, kind of cool looking craft. I think so. Some bitches all fuel. These guys right here, look how much fuel they hold. They hold more than the service module does. And they're there for one reason on this trip. So when I get done going to the moon, coming, launching back up, redocking, that I have enough fuel left to come back and establish a 100 kilometer Earth orbit on the way back. Orbit burn. Okay, made our 200 kilometer orbit. Look at this burn. 3 minutes. That's quite a long burn. Just fly this craft to the moon, back to a trajectory back to Earth, I wouldn't need these 2 tanks. I can go fine on a trajectory back to Earth, and you just re-enter at whatever point it happens to be by the time you get back there. I wanted more control than that. I like to come back into an Earth's orbit, establish an orbit, and then I can do whatever I want. I can just hang out, or I can pick with a lot more accuracy on where I'm going to land. And I always want to land on the lit side. That's just how I like to fly. And I like landing on land. It gives me a lot more visual experience. When the craft that I jettison before re-entry burns up, I can watch it all the way down, and I can watch it detonate on land. Can't see that in water, and you certainly can't see that on the, you're going in on the dark side. So that's the reason why I do it. I built the whole craft with that in mind, because this guy alone is not going to do it. It's not going to get me there. Just like the Apollo craft, which I fly probably more than any other, won't do it either. The real Apollo craft wouldn't do it. They don't have enough fuel. There's not enough fuel in that service module to come back and establish an Earth's orbit. You get back to Earth, make your course corrections to reasonably land where you want, but you can't come back and attain an Earth's orbit. It takes too much fuel to do that. You're coming in at a speed coming back to Earth at the fastest point in the game, you know, other than when you're breaking free of the Earth's gravity to go to the moon to begin with. Okay, we did our translunar burn. We attained the speed we needed to be on a coast trajectory to the moon encounter. So let's go ahead and warp there now so we don't have to wait 5.5 hours. Though some guys do this in real time, ain't nothing wrong with that. It's whatever you want to do. This particular craft always brings me this way, where it's bringing me into a, I call this a clockwise orbit. I don't know if that's prograde or retrograde, but it's not an orbit because there's no periapsis, so you're going to crash on the moon. But that's the direction it's coming in, which is not the direction I want to come in. I want to come in the other way. I want to come in at a counterclockwise rotation, the same rotation that the moon is rotating around Kerbin. So I have to make an inclination burn adjustment for this. But before we do that, let's get rid of our workhorse that got us here. Just a little bit away from this guy. Normally we'd be done with him. He's going to the moon. But this is just something I like to do. I like to do one final burn with this guy because I have fuel left in him. Change my camera angle a little bit. I like to line him up as good as I can. I'm fumbling around with this because I don't have my roll orientation. Exactly right, but it's good enough for what I'm going to do. See, that's pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to light these engines. I want to watch this guy coast by. There he goes. Gave him a little boost. Like I said, unnecessary. He's going in anyway. But this will make some changes. You know, if ground control was doing some calculations and they wanted him to land in a little different spot, they could do a burn like this. So I just do it because it's fun as hell. So now let's get back to that inclination burn I was talking about. And we're going to leave it at 0 because that's going to be the direction I want to come in at. And we're going to do a fixed time on him to give the craft time to orientate itself before the burn. And I want to on this guy. Now we're going to rotate. Computer's lining this thing up where it's supposed to be. And it's going to do a little burn. This burn's going to be real short. Depends, you know, where you're at, how far away from the moon you are. The closer you are, the longer the burn's going to be. Sometimes I do the periapsis, set the periapsis next. Sometimes I do it first. If I do it first and do the inclination second, the inclination's burn's going to be considerably longer. So I choose to do it first. It's a little bit less fuel that way. Son of a bitch, I thought damn it, my mouse clicks ain't working right, damn it. I thought I armed it. Sometimes when I click, I have to click it again. That's going to throw the calculation off a little bit too. Okay, I got the inclination changed. Now we're going to change the periapsis. And I'm going to set it at a 30-kilometer orbit. Going to do the fixed time again. You can see direction of my inclination is how I want it now. My plane looks pretty good. And you can see now we're coming in opposite of the way we were, which is just the way I want it. Now our final burn will be the circularization burn. And it's going to be set at the periapsis. It's quite a long burn, also 55 5 seconds or so. Okay, again, this craft has a lot more mass than, let's say, the Apollo craft, because of all this extra fuel I have. Still doesn't have the mass of that transport craft I fly, though. That 6 crew transport craft I built is a monster. That thing's just freaking huge. Alright, you know what? Let's check the orbit. Because I was a little slow on arming that engine. Let's see how it turns out. 33. Yeah, we're a full 4 kilometers off. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it. It's okay with me. Now what we're gonna do is transfer 2 of our Kerbals over to the limb. You can see they switched, and this little mod called Portrait Stats is a nice little mod just to add the emblems, you know, scientist, engineer, pilot, and when you mouse over it you see where they are. I like that extra feature, especially if you have a moon base and a lot of Kerbals in it. You can just point this and it'll show you everything where they're at. And I always wanted this right here, because I'd always look at these guys and I would forget which one is the pilot, you know, which one is the engineer. I just like to know that stuff. Okay, we got them transferred. Go ahead and decouple the limb. I have a separator in there separating the two. You can see the guy right there, which unfortunately is, since we're in orbit, he's space junk. That means he's just going to stay there. And you know, I go into the tracking station and get rid of debris periodically that are orbiting that I don't want to just hang out up there. Don't want the computer really tracking this kind of stuff when it's not any concern of mine. Okay, let's open the landing legs. Got a little distance on these guys. And you know, in real time, you know, there's going to be some time in between here before you start, you know, making your adjustments. You know, you're going to get further apart. You're going to make your calculations for landing. All that's going to take a while. I mean, we're talking hours. You're just not going to do it like in this game where you just dock and immediately start going down. A lot of stuff that they're having to do still. And that's how this game is. And I try to simulate a space experience like I'm flying. That's why I'm doing this. And it takes some patience because there's a lot of this kind of stuff in this game. You know, I mentioned it before. If you don't enjoy this, or if you can't keep, you know, wrap your head around it, or if you can't, you don't have the patience to do this kind of stuff. See, to me, I could just get a big kick. I could just sit here and watch this stuff, and I could watch it for a long time. But that's just me. You know, some people would watch this and go, "Damn, dude, how do you play this game, man? I need to be killing some shit, man. I need to be doing something. I need to have 30,000 enemy out there that I can send a missile up their ass or some shit like that." Well, if that's the kind of games you like, you're probably not even going to enjoy this. But if you're a space nut and you get a kick out of keeping abreast of space stuff, and you know, watch all the launches on TV and watch different craft and watch the Dragon dock and the Soyuz dock and the Falcon Heavy, if the hair didn't stand up on the back of your head watching that thing, yeah, this game probably isn't going to be of much interest to you. But it sure the hell is for me. Okay, so now, since we got a little distance between them, let's go ahead and start making our plans for landing. So let's take a look. Let's see what we got going here. Of course, I don't want to be doing any of this. I don't want to land on the dark side, so I'm going to go over here and see what's available. Now, see, I have my computer, and depending on what you want to do, you can set the computer up to take care of the adjustments for you. So I don't think I've been to Moonbase 10 for a while. So let's go to Moonbase 10. 15947 South. One 176-50-47 West. That's about as close as I want to get, because I'm landing. My goal is to land beside this guy, not on top of him, so I want to vary these a little bit. Now there's a couple other options here. One is to pick a target on map, which you could just select right there, let's say, if you want to land right there. And the computer will program it to land there. Or you can pick land somewhere, which if you just want to get down there quick and you don't care where you land, you just let the computer decide. And it's going to pick the shortest way down, the most efficient way down, and that's where it's going. So the coordinates is the way I like to go. Again, it's just however way you want to do it. Okay, let's land at target. And let's watch the computer. You can see the mothership just flew by as I was warping a little bit. Where the hell are you, guy? Right there. There you are. You're saying bye-bye. We'll see you in a little while. We'll see you in a couple days. So now it's kind of warping to get a little bit closer. You could take off the warp if you actually wanted to do this in real time. You know, if you didn't have the warp and you did do this game in real time, probably this whole journey to the moon, I'm gonna say it would probably take you about 8 hours each way. Of course, KSP is not to scale, so if you're doing the real moon trip, you'd be talking 2 days each way. Seeing that red, I should have probably picked a different spot. going to do that in the future. I'm going to put this in a different spot so I don't see that red right there. This is a MechJeb module. And what that's for is for flying a spacecraft when you don't have a pilot in it. Because normally you'd have to have a pilot in there or MechJeb to pick it up. Well, when we transferred Kerbals to here, we put a pilot in there. We transferred a pilot and I believe an engineer. That's fine. But when we redock and take him out, now there's no one left in here. When I undock from the mothership, now it's dead. There's nothing in it to control. But let's say you wanted to control it. You had fuel left in it, you wanted to do one more burn to send it out of lunar orbit crashing into the moon. That's what the MechJeb module allows you to do. It allows you to control it without a Kerbal being in there. You know, it'd be just like ground control, remotely controlling it from the ground. That previous stage that I lit that last time to send to the moon a little bit closer, that had a MechJeb module on it too, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to have done that. When I transferred over to it, I had no control over it. So it's something to keep in mind if you have plans to do stuff like that. And there she is down there. And you can see I have a few other things going on down there, so that tells you I've been down here before. In fact, the game keeps track. If you look around, you'll see these are all previous landing of various craft. And I tried to have as many of them as I can. See, there's another one. And this is the plane I always come in on. I always use this as a guidance. See, it goes all the way around. And this is the 0-degree inclination. So that's the kind of, use that as a guide. Of course, you don't have to. You can come in an orbit this way or this way, whichever way you want. But this is the way I always choose, is to stay in 0 inclination. So all my craft are spread out around the moon along this inclination. So I have a lot of choices when I come down. And if I don't land at a base, I'll try to land here, 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 all the way around. So as I'm orbiting, I can see them. And I can choose to land close to one as I can get, and then I'll go check them out, just for the hell of it. Just go say hi. You know, an example would be one of the Apollo missions was to go check out a surveyor craft that had been launched a few years before that. It was an unmanned craft, and they landed, I think, within it wasn't very far, because it didn't take them long to get there, and they actually landed close to it, went checked it out, actually pulled some parts off of it and brought it back to Earth. I believe they took a camera off of it that had been sitting there for 2 or 3 years, brought it back. There's 3 craft around the base. Looks like we're going to be... Where are we coming, baby? We'll be okay. This is what I was talking about when a bunch of coordinates. When you start doing stuff, and it's... When you keep track of your coordinates, let's say you have 10 craft up here, you can try to get them like boom, 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 as symmetrical as you can around it, just to look cool as hell, and to be able to pull it off. if you kept track of this. Man. I'm good. Yeah, we're still okay. I was gonna say, I'm getting kind of close to that guy. Awesome. Friggin' awesome. Oh, look at that, man. That's pretty close. That's about as close to come. Look at that. That's about as close to come to a target as what I'd comfortably want to do. Let's go back inside. Open the door. Dude, you missed a step again. You never can tell the way the Kerbal kicks out. Like, look at that. Kerbal shouldn't be kicking out clear over to here, but that's the way this game is. Okay, let's look around. See, it gives you a little idea of the scale. Although, it's not quite right for the real scale of the real deal. This, in the scale of the real one, this would be bigger. In fact, you look at these pictures, you know, pictures are so deceiving in video as far as scale. This limb, you know, unless you've done a lot of research on this and watched a lot of videos, you can't get an appreciation by how big this thing is. Even on the real videos from the moon, you just can't get an idea of how big it is. But the only way you can do it is to watch videos of the construction of the moon project. If you watch them, you can see the old footage. You know, they'll show you construction of the first stage, second stage, all the various parts. And you can start to see scale in those videos and just how humongous these parts really were. And if you can watch some old footage of them building the limb, and it will show, you know, it in the building, it'll show all the people walking around it. And you just look at it and you just kind of get a scale like, holy shit, is that thing big? Looking at scale again can kind of give you an idea of this one if you haven't watched my other video. I show scale of a Kerbal sitting here with the whole craft before it launched back. This is just the descent stage. It has an ascent stage on it, and then a crew module. The thing is about this tall. It's like big. And when you have a Kerbal standing next to it, it gives you a little appreciation just how big that thing really is. I mean, look at the landing legs, crying out loud. You know, like the landing legs on the Falcon. You look at them some bitches in a video, and there's no way to get an appreciation how big just the legs themselves are. I mean, just the arms that hold the legs on there, them some bitches, the metal that holds the legs, they're like 3 feet in diameter. I mean, you just look at them from space, and you just from videos, and you just can't get an idea. Now, there's some videos of the Falcon 9. If you watch them bringing this first stage back into port, then you can start seeing the scale and just how big that thing really is. When you see them hoisting it up, and shows the people around it that are working on it, and it just gives you a sense on holy shit. I watched the videos and I had no idea this thing is this big. Or watching the diesel trucks move the first stage back to SpaceX. How big the trailers are that pull that, and that gives you a sense of scale too. You see that thing coming down the street. Okay, here's my space station with one of my similar problems. Some of my lights being out, I can see. Some of them are lit, but you get up in here, and some of them are out. And this is, oh shit, come on dude, don't, man, don't. Ooh, that was a little rough. Okay, this is a station. Man, I swear I came over here and turned these lights back on. Maybe not. This is one of my bigger stations, actually. This is Ridley, okay. Okay, we're in. I wanted to do this because I wanted to take back control of the station. Turn these damn lights back on. Okay, I believe it was just those 3. Let's see, here's this space station. These are all my radiators to dissipate heat from these nuclear reactors. See, operational. They would, if I didn't have this cooling going on to cool these guys off, they would shut back down. Okay, this is where this mod I was talking about, the portrait stats, comes in handy. See, you can see where they all are. You can cycle through. gonna go find Ribley. This is one we just took in there. She's a scientist. So I just want to keep track to make sure I put a pilot back in there if I took a pilot out. Even though I don't technically need to because I have that mech jet module in there, but I still like to do it. Alright, let's go in. And you can cycle through the, see, I mean, the detail. Even looking out the window and seeing whatever craft is the position. See, there's a solar panel, radiators up there. Cycle through. That's another one. There's another one. You look out the window again and see part of one of the legs. Cool as hell. All these modules are different. Only the ones that have Kerbals in them will cycle through. So if they're empty, you won't cycle through it till you put a Kerbal in there. There's an observation deck. Look at that. Looking right outside. Cool. This mod is done courtesy of a mod called HyperEdit. Allows you to build this mod in the spaceplane hangar complete, just like you see it. And that's a task in itself. You know, I tried to build all my stations different from each other, and it's part of the fun, sitting there and actually constructing something like this. Takes a while. Plan on spending a few hours building this thing, and it's I gotta get a lot of satisfaction for building something like this to do all the things I need it to do. You know, my primarily goal is to sustain the Kerbals. So as long as I got everything in there that they're going to need, and that this station is going to sustain itself over time, that's my goal. I tend to go more towards nuclear, even though I have a couple solar powered bases. But I tend to go nuclear and use radiators, and I don't need any solar panels because the nuclear is going to take care of all my power needs. So now let's pick a guy. Since I took one out, I'm going to leave Ribley there, and I'm going to take out Sarin. Let's take her out. Alright, let's see, where are you? Oh, there you are. You're down there. You fell off. Okay. Come on over here. Let's see where the limb is. It's over there. Let's go a flyby. Yeah, I gotta move that make job. I don't like that red. That red reflection. I gotta remember to go back in. Close the door. And you can see I can't close the door. Latch is on that side. So you gotta remember to cycle over to the other guy. And don't forget to not take this guy out, and not remember to not take the guy out and then not bring him back, because then you come back in and you're this guy and you can't cycle over and you can't shut the door. I learned that the hard way. Okay, secured it. Okay, let's see where our craft is. Let's give him a little help and warp him around a little bit. Looks like we get him around 90 degrees or so. And then we want to select him as target. Now we want to go back to our computer and set up our launch. We're going to go 30. Going to do a quick save. See, this happened to me before. I don't know if that's a mouse thing right there going on. It's done that to me in the VAB before too. This is where I'm having a hard time, for some reason, getting this thing to separate correctly when it launches. "19 minutes. Just need a little help. Whoa. For some reason it's not working out when I try to put these together. There's a separator, there's the stage. It should separate, shoot off. But for some reason it's kind of glitching on me. I don't know if it's the mod, you know, the limb itself, or if it's MechJeb. But if I launch this manually without MechJeb, it's fine. So we're getting close to our countdown. We're going to try to match it to the launch countdown when we engage the autopilot. And it should launch right about there. Let's see if it does it. Okay. That was actually good. That was a good one. See the target up there, I don't see him. Must mean I have a little work to do this time. made orbit. Now we're going into the rendezvous phase. This flight's different than my last flight. My last one I could see him out there the whole time. The whole time I'm approaching. See where we're at, so that's why I couldn't see him. He's a little bit farther away. You can see the computer's telling you what it's doing up here. That 2.5 hours. I'm gonna catch him here in a minute. There he is. Okay, we got within our 100 meters. you are.
Yeah, bitch. Yeah, what? Airborne for the dust, so it against Solomon. Shout to it, Sparrow Hawk Heavy. No, the boys to the floor, go and know your friend. Yeah, go get it up. I'm not off on the penny bad next time, I don't mean this next guy. I mean it, will you see me? Sige, film ska pala sa A80. Yan, nirot ni. You're sitting in the lead, darn it, see? Yes, you make that get now, don't you off?
Now let's transfer the crew back into the command module. All safe and sound. Now the limb, normally they'd release the limb right now, and depending on their orbit, the limb would just remain behind and stay in lunar orbit for could be a long time. Maybe not. I don't know if they can program it to do another burn and crash onto the moon, or just let it decay, come down on its own. Only one time. You don't want them to bring it back because that's extra work you have to do when you re-enter. Only one time they did do that was on Apollo 13, when they had that explosion in the service module. Forced, and of course this was the whole limb, because they never went to the moon on that expedition, so they brought the whole limb all the way with them, ascent and descent stage, legs and all, because they had to move in here and live and shut down most of the parts of the command module all the way around the moon to gain momentum, and with another burn using the LEM engine, which it was not designed to do, to boost them back to Earth. And then when they got back close to Earth, then they jettisoned the LEM, and then of course jettisoned the damaged command module, and then came back home. So this time we're going to go ahead and leave it here, and it's going to continue to stay in orbit around the moon, and it'll be there until I go into the tracking station and get rid of it. And for some reason the fuel isn't showing up on this. When I come back, I have to shut it down, then turn it back on. See, now it comes back up. I don't know why that is. It's just on this craft. Now we're going to do what would normally be my last burn. Return from the moon. This is to get us out of lunar orbit, back into a trajectory where Earth's orbit would capture us. This is when I wouldn't need these tanks. If I just want to go back into a free trajectory and land wherever it's going to put me. But since I want to go back into an Earth's orbit first, that's where I need this extra fuel. There's the limb. We're following it around, and we'll finally lose it right here when we ignite this engine. It's staying. We're leaving. Gotta go to bias. Right there she goes. Actually, there we go. Okay, we gain enough speed to boost us away. Till we get to the point where we are captured. For our free ride home. Now if I did nothing else, we would just re-enter on whatever side of the Earth we happened to be by the time we got there. So we're going to make our preparations. To transfer some fuel. This tank has been draining, actually, this tank has been draining along with the service module as we've been burning. Because of the way I have this attached, this one has not been. This one's been isolated. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this guy and we're going to fill him back up. And we still have some left in here. So we're going to take the rest of it and put it back into the service module. Now this guy's empty. We want him to be empty because the way I have this attached, when we separate the command module from the service module from the command module, this guy's going with him. I didn't want it that way, but that's the way it ended up turning out. And for me to change that now, it's going to be a major deal. So what I did is I flied this before because I wanted to see if he would survive re-entry. Of course, he's got a heat shield on him, but I was worried that this guy was going to burn up and take him with him. But luckily he didn't. So I just decided to leave it. So let's go back into the maneuver planner. And we're going to set our periapsis, since we don't have one right now, and we're going to set it for 100 kilometers. This is going to be a pretty short burn. Actually, you know what I want to do? Abort that. And I have to set it at a fixed time, otherwise he's not going to burn for about 12 hours. So let's do it again. Now, short burn. All we need to do, as you can see here, is to adjust our burn, or adjust our orbit. So we're going to have a periapsis. In other words, a point, the lowest point of our orbit. And then we can establish orbit from that point. Now we're going to circularize at the next periapsis. And we got a pretty long burn here to bleed off all that speed we picked up as we came closer to the Earth. let's check our orbit. It's not very good. About 25 kilometers off. I'm gonna change that since we have fuel. Now which one do I want to keep? I think I want to keep that one. So let's change this X Apple app and let's take a look at it. Yep, that's what we want. Okay, short burn again. It's a lot better. Okay, we're gonna do one final burn. Let's take a look at the map again and see where we might want to come down. Boy, this is a little rocky right there. Let's go. Alright, let's try this. That was almost a full orbit away.
Get out, Rick.
Happened last time. This guy's going out to sea, it looks like. Wow, I lost a little bit of this. I wonder what burned up. Hopefully. The kernels are still there. Getting ready to arm the chutes. This guy to see if we can see it. Oh, there he goes. Droga released and mains came out. Trying to figure out what exploded. I don't see. There goes our main deploy. I see what it was. It was my aerials. They normally have little tips on them. It looks like the tips exploded. Nice soft landing. Kerbal safe and sound. Cool. Later, dudes.